Okay, we're now joined by Florida A&M University head coach Willie Simmons. The Rattlers fell at Howard this past weekend and returns home to host South Carolina State this weekend in a contest which will not count toward Meac standings. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Hey, good morning. Doing well.
Coach, recap last weekend's game at Howard and what stood out once you got back and reviewed the film.
Well, when it was a learning trip for the guys, we were able to go to the Smithsonian, the Black History Museum, which was very, very, I think, educational for the guys and something that they'll never forget. But went in and played a Howard team that we knew would be very excited about us coming there. Obviously, it's a rivalry between the two schools, and obviously with them losing the week before to South Carolina State, I knew they'd be hungry to get back and play their best game. And I took my hat to those guys. They played good football, were able to run the ball against us. Opportunistic on the defensive side of the ball with a couple of turnovers, and we just didn't do enough in all three phases to get the job done. Made some plays here and there, but just consistently didn't perform at the level that we're capable of. So, tough loss, obviously. They had a chance to clinch the conference championship with a win there, but the good thing is, the guys are still positive about where we are as a football team. We're still controlling our own destiny, but had to get back to the drawing board and obviously fix some things that we didn't do particularly well, and get ready for a tough, physical South Carolina State team that had just beat that same Howard team that we just lost to. So we know Buddy Pough will have those guys ready to play. I have the utmost respect for Coach Pough and the job that he's done at South Carolina State over these years, and he's definitely a guy that I look up to and truly a mentor to me in this profession. So I'd be very honored to have him come here on this, farewell tour if he is telling all us the truth instead of playing with us. But definitely just excited about the opportunity to get back on the field against a good South Carolina State team and to finish our home season out on senior night.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to register a question, please press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. You will hear a 3-tone prompt to acknowledge your request. If your question has been answered and you would like to withdraw your registration, please press the 1 followed by the 3. If you are using a speakerphone, please lift your handset before entering your request. One moment, please, for our first question. And our first question comes from the line of Melvin Beal with Inside Sports. Please proceed with your question.
Good morning, Coach Simmons. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Melvin.
Hey, coming out of that Howard game, how's the team's health, specifically Ryan's?
We're pretty well health-wise. He's been dealing with just a bone contusion in his back for about the last 3 weeks. But he's playing through it. I don't really think it's affecting him that much at this point. Probably impedes him from really, really driving into the ball sometimes. He really tries to get behind the ball. It catches a little bit, but he's fine. He's well enough to play, and he'll definitely be ready to go this week.
Awesome. Talk a little bit about this South Carolina State team coming in. They're starting to play some really good football, and you mentioned that they're very physical. Talk a little bit about the challenges of going up against them offensively and defensively.
Well, the first thing that jumps out is that Buddy Pough coach football team, which one, that means they're going to be extremely tough. That means they're going to be fundamentally sound, and that means they're not going to back down against anyone. He's proven throughout his time here in the Meac as one of the legendary coaches in this league that he can get his teams ready to play. And it's definitely with this being the kind of his farewell tour. I'm sure those guys really want to do a great job of sending him out the right way. And what better way to do that than to come here and spoil our senior night and be one of their biggest rivalries. And so we expect them to come and play their best game. But they're a very athletic team. Again, they have a very, very dynamic quarterback, which obviously we had some issues, containing Kalen Newton last week. And so we'll definitely be facing another tough challenge with a guy who may actually be a more dynamic runner. Maybe not the same caliber of passer as Kalen, but again, maybe more dynamic running the football. So we definitely have some things to clean up on the defensive side of the ball. And on the offensive side of the ball, we have to get back to playing good, fundamentally sound football. Way too many on Sunday. Obviously, got to have another one today because we're going to definitely need to be hitting on all cylinders coming this Saturday.
Coach, you talked about the educational opportunities there in Washington, visiting the museum. Today is Election Day. Have you talked with the players that are eligible to vote about the importance of voting?
Well, obviously we've been talking about that for a long time, and obviously being a public figure, I can't publicly get up and promote a candidate and all those things, but we do have a very significant election this year in the state of Florida, and obviously one of the candidates is an alum, and so if there's never been a bigger time to get out and vote, it's now. There's a chance to make history. So we've had all type of rallies. There was a huge rally on campus last night. There's a lot of celebrities, and Diddy was here, Angela Rye obviously was here, Tiffany Haddish, a lot of big time celebrities here promoting the Democratic candidate for governor this year. So the guys are going to go out and vote today if they haven't already, and we definitely encourage them to do so. But that was one of the things we talked to them about. Going to that museum and seeing all the history. We talked to them last week. One of the biggest things that we as a people have fought for is our right to vote, and definitely want to make sure we exercise that to pay homage to the people who sacrifice so much to just even give us this opportunity.
Coach, thank you very much, and good luck this weekend.
I appreciate it, Melvin.
And there are presently no further questions on the phone lines at this time.
Coach Simmons, before we close out, just talk about putting last week's game behind you, focusing on South Carolina State, and not even worrying about what happens 2 weeks later, especially with the way the contest this weekend doesn't implicate the conference standings.
Well, again, we've done a really good job all year of taking a tunnel vision mindset. We have a 24-hour rule. Win, lose, or draw. We're gonna celebrate the game we win for 24 hours, and then on Sunday we're gonna get back to work. Lose the game, we're gonna sulk and get back to work the next day. And most of the year we've taken that approach and been very and done very well. I think last week for the first time, our guys actually started to look ahead. At the what ifs. We win this game, we could be champions. If we do that, and that was my fault. I didn't do a good enough job of keeping the guys locked in on what we've done all year. We let when the game is over, we let the dust settle, and whatever happens, happens. But our focus all year has been keep the blinders on, don't look to your left or your right, look at what's in front of you. And what's in front of us is a very, very dangerous South Carolina State football team. It's senior day for us. This is the last time that these group of seniors will ever play on Brad Memorial Stadium in a college football contest. And so we want to make sure we send those guys out the right way. It's Military Appreciation Day. We want to make sure we honor our military and all the people that have fought for our liberties by coming out and playing a great football game. And it's a home game, more than anything else. So all year we've talked about bringing pride back in Brad Memorial Stadium, of not losing games at our home place. And so there are enough motivating factors for us to get ourselves up to play this week. But more than anything else, it's the biggest game of the year. It's the biggest game that we've ever played in because it's the next game up. And we've taken that approach, and when we take that approach, we've been really, really good. The one time we didn't last week, we saw the outcome because we think our guys didn't necessarily lock in as much as they have all season.
Well, Coach, thank you for joining us this morning and sharing your thoughts, and we'll definitely talk with you again this time next week.
All right, thank you, guys.
Florida A&M University is at home this weekend versus the Bulldogs of South Carolina State. Kickoff is set for 4 p.m., and once again, the contest will not count toward the Meac standings, as this is labeled a non-conference contest. And the contest will be streamed live on ESPN3. Okay, we'll now move on to Daytona Beach, Florida, as we're joined by Bethune-Cookman University head coach Terry Sims. The Wildcats defeated Morgan State on the road this past weekend and are at home Thursday night as they prepare to host the Eagles of North Carolina Central. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good, Coach. Recap last week's game versus Morgan State and the show that we got to watch called the Jimmy Robinson Show.
Well, honestly, to be totally honest with you, we started out a little slow on offense and defense in that game, but picked it up in the latter part of the first quarter. Ended up scoring 16 points. Jimmy did a great job, but he's Jimmy. He does that every week, regardless of if it's offense or on special teams. He adds a spark to this football team, and we look for him to continue to do that throughout the rest of this season. So went up and played a tough Morgan football team, and we knew that. Watching them on film, those guys just have not had the ball bounce their way a lot this year, but definitely a well-prepared football team. They played hard the whole game, and we had a lead for a while, and they came back, and that just shows the resilience of that football team and the way they're prepared. Their coaches didn't allow them to give up, and the players didn't give up. They continued to play and made it a game all the way down until the last 45 seconds of the football game. But again, I have to take my hat off to them, and definitely glad we came out with the win. Our football team, I think, grew up a lot on Saturday night. We didn't waver at the end of the game, and we gave the ball back to them with a little bit less than a minute on the clock, and our guys didn't waver. They didn't blink an eye. The defense strapped up and went back on the field, and the offense was cheering them on. So I think we took a big step as a football team, as a program on Saturday night, and hopefully we see it carry over on Thursday.
And speaking of Thursday, seems like I ask this question every year. We already know the history between you all and North Carolina Central. It's going to go down to the wire. In some cases, the closing seconds or the final second. And they're talking about this is a big game because both teams are still in a race for the Meac championship. And so they're talking about playing against Central, especially on not a normal schedule that you normally would have if it was on a Saturday.
Well, the schedule is what it is, and I'm not a guy that gets into, Sundays, Monday, and Mondays, Tuesday, or none of that. The day is what it is. We coming in, and we came in Sunday and started to prepare like we do any other week. They're on a short schedule just like we are. So, we have to go through our days of practice that we have allotted and get ready. But we know that, Central's going to come in, and Coach Eastman and his staff, they're going to have them prepared and ready to go. They're coming off of a big homecoming win. You always have to acknowledge that because now they're riding high. They have some confidence, and they're going to come in here looking to get another win. We just have to make sure that we're disciplined and that we finish in all three phases to make sure that we're successful on Thursday.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to register a question, please press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. And our first question comes from the line of Melvin Beal with Inside Sports. Please proceed with your question.
Good morning, Coach Simmons.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. You talked about all three phases there. What are some of the challenges that Central presents to you offensively?
Well, Central offensively, and they've had I think, just like anybody in the league, most of these teams, and including us, you're playing a lot of different personnel. So they have, a running back that's shifty that can get the job done. They have, 2 or 3 receivers that can go get the ball and extend the plays. And the quarterbacks that they have playing right now, I know, Chauncey's out, but they still have 2 guys that they played on Saturday that are very capable, of running the offense and moving the offense. So we just have to make sure that we're in place, make sure that we have their skill guys covered and we know where they are. And we gotta put a little bit of pressure on these quarterbacks and make them get rid of the ball.
Yes, I was going to ask you next about the defensive challenge there as far as facing them and special teams.
Well, defensively, when you look at Central, they're normal Central defensive football team, and Coach Eastman, He's the head coach now, but he has been the defensive coordinator, so we know what the defense is going to give us. They're going to be an aggressive, stingy defense. They're going to cause you problems, all around. And our offense, I think we're clicking pretty good right now, but we definitely have to have a plan together to neutralize their linebackers. If their backers are always going to be guys that'll cause you problems. And they have a couple guys up front that are going to try to, cause some issues, and we got to make sure we get hats on them and neutralize our side of the line of scrimmage. We have to create a new line of scrimmage and not allow them to do it. Special teams-wise, I think we have – no, I'm just saying special teams-wise, I think, we match up well with them. And it's always a battle because we all, both teams always end up having a really, really good guy returning, whether it be punts or kickoffs. We just have to cover well and tackle well.
Yes. Finally, Coach, you talked about your team really progressing at this point in the season and taking another step. Can you expand that conversation a little bit and tell me, is it just that time in the season the guys are starting to get the system down? What is that big step that the team has taken?
Well, I think, we have so many young guys, and I don't ever like to use that as an excuse. We just have a lot of young guys that are playing, and early on in the season, it's no better way to prepare guys, to play this game, except for playing it. And we were put in some situations early in the season where we had young guys that just had not been, in that moment before, and it was difficult for them, and we did not fare well when that happened. And I think now we've played enough games. Those guys are seasoned a little bit more. Our guys understand, each other a little bit more, and everyone's in the fold. So that's what I mean by us growing up and coming together. I think now our guys that were young and inexperienced, they have game time experience now, and they understand what's required to finish a football game, and I think that showed up on Saturday night.
Well, good luck to you on Thursday, Coach.
Thank you.
And there are no further questions on the phone lines at this time.
Coach, before we close out, talk about your defense. You had 12 tackles for loss and 6 sacks, and they came up even with some points that turned out you really needed them at the end. So just talk about their play last week and how we like that to carry over this week.
Well, the points that the defense ended up getting, I have to give credit to our, Coach Larkins and our punt team to start out because Giovanni Francis, he did a great job of getting the punt down there, and our gunners did a great job of getting down and downing the ball on the 1 yard line. So that's where it started. And our defense, they just went out and played the way we knew that they were capable of playing. We simplified some things. I talked about that last week to allow them to play a little faster, and they're doing that. And we're getting a lot of success out of that right now, and hopefully that continues here in the next couple of days.
Well, Coach, thanks again for joining us, and good luck as you prepare to face off against Central on Thursday night.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bethune-Cookman will host North Carolina Central live on ESPNU this Thursday night. Kickoff is set for 7 p.m. as you can also watch the contest on ESPN3. We'll now travel north to the city of Dover, Delaware for our third head coach this morning as we welcome in Rod Milstead. The Hornets picked up their second straight win last weekend and will head to Morgan State this weekend. Coach, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Rod. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, Coach. Coach, you liked winning so much 2 weeks ago that you came back and did it again. So just talk about last week's win for the Savannah State and just what has it done for the morale on campus.
Well, it's definitely increased the morale. Our guys are finally getting the program and what we're trying to do here. It took a while, but the kids are buying in. They're practicing at a higher level. Their concentration level has increased week by week by week. And after that first win, they got a taste of what it feels like to win, which hasn't happened here in some time. It just has changed the dynamics of our football program in terms of everything we do. More guys are locked in earlier in the week, and they're eager to practice, and the morale has gone extremely high the last couple of weeks.
And also, we talked about last week, you had a running back in Michael Chris Ike, that was freshman, or newcomer of the week for the Meac. But then you had another running back last week, and Brian Dallas emerged. And we already know what you have with Bryson and Lean. Just talk about all of a sudden this newfound depth you have at the position, and how do you have enough time to give them all a chance to run the ball?
Well, Ryan, the funniest thing is that we have we have 7 running backs on our roster, and what we do is we make it a competitive atmosphere every week. So it's really running back by committee. It's the guy who has the hot hand, the hot legs. Bryson has been the most consistent, and then against Central, Michael Chris Ike stepped up and he did his thing. And then last week we needed a spark, and we put Brian Dallas in, and he gave us the lift that we needed. He came in running really hard, kept his shoulders square, knees are turning, and got us the first downs and the hard, tough yards that we really, really needed. So it was good to see him get his opportunity. He's been waiting to do big things, and he's had chances throughout the year to do some things, but he really made it his own on Saturday. And we look forward to all 3 of those guys getting reps this week coming up.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Once again, to register a phone question, it is the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. 1-4 to register for a question. And there appear to be no questions on the phone lines at this time.
Coach, talk about Morgan State this week. They're one of the teams. They're physical. They're tough. Obviously, running the ball was their calling card until a few weeks ago. Now they became a passing team. So just talk about the challenge you have in going to face Morgan State in Baltimore.
Well, anytime you go into Baltimore and face Morgan, is always a hostile environment. Those coaches over there are going to have those Bears ready to go and ready to hunt. And our job is to continue to get better. That's what our whole motto is, to take a step each day and to get better. That's what we've managed to do the last 2 weeks, and we really, want to keep it going. The guys like the way they feel. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And they like the way they feel on Sundays, and they like the way they feel Saturday afternoon. So we will continue to keep our guys motivated and to keep them pressing on. Offensively, Morgan comes at you with a lot of different ways. You're right. You thought it was a run attack, and now it's a passing game, and they got a quarterback, which makes everything work as most teams in the Meac. And our key is going to be slowing him down or trying to stop him from being successful. Defensively, they come at you with so many different blitzes and pressures on your quarterback to try to interrupt the things that you try to do. They load the box up 6, 7, 8, 9 guys and make it difficult for you for your running game. Bethune-Cookman was able to get them on some things just for a couple missed tackles that they missed, and they were able to gash them a couple times. But I'm quite sure they'll get those things corrected. And then special teams-wise, we just got to continue to be consistent on our special teams. We had a letdown a couple weeks ago against South Carolina State that really hurt us. Probably was the turning point of the game. But we got to make sure that we solidify all aspects of our kicking game and special teams and play 4 quarters, and we should be okay.
Coach, we have a question lined up for you. Hold on 1 second, please.
And that's from the line of Phil Shaner with Sports Fever Television Network. Please proceed with your question.
Hi, Coach. Just talk about the quarterback play. McDaniels has been the guy the last couple of weeks, but Black is still there and available to you. How's that played out for you the last couple of weeks?
Well, it played out well. It's kind of crazy because we're in the same situation that we were in during training camp and spring ball. Both of them are very good, capable quarterbacks. It just right now, Jack has the hot hand, He's been doing well. He's getting better every week. He's practicing better. His focus to detail has been much better. He had one little hiccup last week, and watching the film, and it was a combination of the guard. It's kind of crazy when you throw a screen pass. You want your offensive lineman to block as little as possible and get down to the second level. And one of our linemen held their guys, did a very good pass blocking job, but when he released them, Jack was throwing the ball to the running back, and, of course, the defensive lineman took it in for 6 points. But, Jack was able to get the guys on the sideline, get them back in stride, and we took the ball down, and we scored, which really just put the game out of reach for Savannah. So Jack is doing a phenomenal job. Keenan is right there helping them on the sideline. They're working as a tag team, and, we look forward to the competition for the last 2 weeks.
Coach, two underrated guys at your wide receiver position in Selby and Gross. 29 catches and 27 for the two. You don't throw it often, but those guys consistently get open for you. How good are they?
They're very good. That's something that we want to concentrate more on is the last 2 weeks, is trying to get these guys more catches. They work so hard in practice. They give us so much off the perimeter in their perimeter blocking and things like that. And like I told them, I don't just want you guys to be known as a blocking receiver. So they work really, really hard to make themselves get open. Then, they catch the difficult catches. When balls come to them, they know that they may be few and in between. So they do everything they can to catch them, secure them, and then get as many yards as they can. But that's something we want to focus in on this week is trying to get both of those guys the ball more, because they're very good athletes. And when you put the balls in their hands, great things are happening.
Thanks, Coach. Have a good week.
You too. Thank you.
And there are no further questions on the phone lines.
And, Coach, before we close out, just talk about, you mentioned earlier about how the team is practicing even harder than what they did before the wins. And is there a point to where sometimes they got to kind of calm their intensity down, because sometimes their adrenaline is just going at a full speed?
Well, it's kind of funny because I told them as the season goes on, the things we do is what we do. We don't differ. We don't deviate. We've been doing the same thing since day one. The difference is the guys understand the concepts now. They've stayed true, and they've been trusting the process, and they've seen now the fruits of their labor. For the first 7 weeks, we were in a lot of games, and unfortunately it didn't come out in our favor. Guys never quit. They never favored. They continue to work hard. They worked hard in the weight room. They worked hard in the classroom. They worked hard in film study. Every aspect of our football program, guys decided to work harder. We also did some things differently in terms of getting to know each other. And I think once we got to the point where our guys started trusting one another, believing in one another, things started taking off, and it was definitely evident against the Central game. And last week as well, it just picked up from where they left off at Central, and they continued on this nice ride they were on. So I'm praying that we continue to work hard this week, and things will pick up from where we left off on Saturday afternoon and take our talents down to Morgan.
And before we close out, Coach, obviously I did monitor social media last weekend. I didn't see what I saw a few weeks ago, so you must have closed the account on me or something like that, Coach. But, hey, I understand, and sometimes emotions take over, but it's business as usual. So, but good luck as we begin for this week.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. I had to put that to bed for a minute. Ryan, I'm not as young as I used to be. Because I'm a retired football player. I don't have one more snap in me. I'm done, and that took a lot out of me. So you may see that once a year going forward, Ryan, once a year.
And, Coach, if I see it 10, 11 times, that's good also. So we'll definitely talk next week, and good luck as you go against Morgan State.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome. Delaware State will take on the Bears of Morgan State this weekend in Baltimore. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m. and the contest will be shown live on ESPN3 and Sports Fever TV. We're now joined by Howard University head coach Mike London. The Bison defeated Florida A&M this past weekend and will head south to Norfolk State on Saturday. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good, Coach. Recap last week's game as your team pulled out a tough contest over a Florida A&M team that was trying to clinch the Meac championship.
Yeah, great game. It was one of those games that, that a lot of anticipation in terms of, the guys and who in the water on each team. I was very proud of the players, the coaches, the game plan we put together. We were able to get 21 first-half points, which is significant for us, starting fast. We hadn't done that the last couple games. And I thought particularly in the second half, the defense only allowing 6 points. And, coming away with the victory, had some big red zone stops. We did well in third down. We scored. It just, had explosive plays that I think been characteristic of us. Jaquez Ezra was back, although not 100%. He was back and contributed, as well as Kyle Anthony. So, it was a complete game for us, and it was really good to see. And I just found out that it's the first time since a long time that we've defeated a team that was number one in the Meac, but also in the Black College polls, and kind of dated back to when Steve Air McNair was playing Jay Walker back in 1993, when Howard beat them here at Green Stadium. So. It was a great win for the program in terms of the significance of it. Obviously, there's still some games left to play. Coming back off a disappointing homecoming loss, being able to rebound and play against, a really, really good, Florida A&M team was something that, to be celebrated. So, we look forward to the challenge of this week and trying to finish strong in the conference. See how things play out, but very pleased with the performance of our guys past Saturday.
Thank you, Coach. We're going to open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, to register a phone question, please press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. 1-4 to register a question. There appear to be no questions on the phone lines at this time.
Coach, talk about the second-to-last drive when Jalen Smith made an interception in the end zone.
Yeah, Jalen Smith, kind of a quiet young man who, the true freshman corner, that's been playing, ever since the beginning, and the ability to go up and get the ball, and that was significant, when you turn the ball over in a red zone and he plays the ball and help things out there. So. He's been a steady performer for us. A lot of times you see when corners are out there, because a lot of times they're out there by themselves. You see the deep throws and all that. You don't see the significance of a lack of a rush might have against a corner that's covering a wide receiver. But Jalen has, as all the freshmen for us, has kind of matured over the course of the season and has played in good games, close games, tough wins, tough losses, and but he was able to make a big play there for us, as well as Ty Freeland. Had an interception down there. Ty was the co-defensive Meac player of the week, and we're happy for him too. He's one of our leaders, very quiet guy, but gets the job done. So we got a young secondary with Jalen Smith, John Smith, Rodney Denard, all those guys back there, learning and getting better, but we're very pleased with the win, and as I said, now we concentrate and get ready to move on for Norfolk State.
And speaking of Norfolk State, they didn't have the best October, but they opened up last week against A&T. It's a tough game down in the end, and their offense was back to where it was pre-October. So just talk about going up against the Spartans up here in Norfolk.
Yeah, to me, they're a very athletic, very good team, and things haven't always bounced your way, but they're always competitive. Latrell Scott's not only, to me, a good coach, he's a good friend in this profession. And, he has a team that's hungry, is going to give great effort. Juwan Carter, the quarterback, he's as advertised. He can throw the ball, he can run the ball, he can do everything. So he's a guy that we have to be aware of. Defensively, they're pretty good defensively as well. That you look at in the conference, their third rush defense, their first in pass defense, second in total defense. So, when they play well, they play well, and they look really good. Like all of us, if the elements of offense, defense, or turnovers, get at you, then it lessens your chance to win games. So, as you said, I know they started out and were able to score some points, last Saturday. And we're just going to have to make sure, we take care of ourselves and travel down there and still have the dreams of, competing for a winning record again. To be able to end up with 2 losses in the conference. All those things are at stake. But again, as you said, Norfolk State to us is a good team. It was a team we beat last year in the last play. They kick off return. They had a chance to go all the way. That's how close the game was. So we got our work cut out for us, but we're excited for the challenge.
And talk about the play of your running game. Last week you had another strong performance against one of the top run defenses in the Meac. So you talk about, obviously the running backs get the attention, but sometimes you're only as good as your offensive line. So just talk about the combination of them and providing the protection up front for your running game success.
Sure. You always call them the big lovelies. They got the stomachs hanging out of the jerseys, and pads don't fit and all that stuff. But they just get out there. They just do their work. Tyler Shadrack, James Holman for us are 2 veterans, but surrounded by 3 freshmen that played with Brennan Johnson as a sophomore. But on both tackles we had two true freshmen. And when you can have an opportunity, and you have backs that we have. We're kind of backs by committee this year, but a guy that really had a great game for us was Didrik Parsons. Had about 149 yards. In the fourth quarter, he made some significant runs to keep the ball, in play and the clock running. So you're right. The offensive linemen is a group that they don't get a whole lot of credit, but a lot of times when the run game's going well, or you keep the sacks down off the quarterback, then it's a point of mentioning when that occurs. So we're proud of our offensive line and the guys that I'm proud of the whole team. So now, like I said, now you got to put it together again and come up with a game plan to go down there and play Coach Latrell's team.
And before we close out, just talk about you're from this area, obviously, and just talk about your history with Coach Scott and just your friendship in general, especially on and off the field.
In this coaching profession, sometimes you meet guys that you talk with, pick up the phone and check on them, and Latrell's one of those guys. We were both at. I was at Richmond, and then he came, became the head coach at Richmond as well. We know a lot of the same people down in the Tidewater area. He was at UVA for a while as well. So there's a lot of commonality. But, in the profession, to also have guys that are friends, because you confide in them and you talk about, different things that affect, you as a coach, as a family man, there's understanding and commonality with that. So, I know he's trying to get, do the best he can down there, for Norfolk State. But, like I said, he's a good friend, and you always try to encourage each other. This one, we both want to win a game, so the competitiveness doesn't separate the friendship part of it. So look forward to getting down there and speaking with him prior to the game and after.
Well, Coach, thanks again for joining us, and we'll definitely talk with you again next week.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Howard University heads to Norfolk, Virginia to face off against the Spartans of Norfolk State. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m., and the contest will be streamed live on ESPN3. And speaking of Norfolk State, we're joined by Norfolk State University head coach Latrell Scott. Spartans fell to North Carolina A&T State this past Saturday and will return home to face Howard this weekend. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good, Coach. Talk about last weekend's game in Greensboro. As pretty much when you really break the film down, the difference just came down to little things which affected the outcome of the game.
Well, no question about it. I thought our kids played hard. They were competitive. They didn't back down, but as you said, some untimely turnovers in the red zone, and we didn't have an answer for the A&T rushing attack there late in the third and early fourth quarter. Great football team, one of the best teams I think in FCS, and if we're going to be on that level, then we've got to do what it takes to be able to finish games like that.
And one player that stood out last week, especially watching them in depth, is Chuma, one of your wide receivers. Big target. Just talk about what his play means to your offense, especially when he gets going.
Well, Chuma's had some nagging injuries. He's been banged up. He, started off the season, first couple of games playing very well. He's, kind of part of a, force that we feel like at wideout. We can get any of those guys the ball, along with Marcus Taylor and Justin Smith and Isaiah Winstead. But, Saturday was Chuma's day to make some big plays, and then he did for us.
And then also, just talk about, you got your offense, they was back on track according to your standards. And so just talk about being able now to move the ball, especially against a defense as ranked as A&T's was.
Well, it gave us some confidence. I think our offensive line, played as well as they played all season. For the early part of the game, our quarterback made some plays that he hadn't made in the last couple of weeks. So, we did have some guys playing better. I think we had A&T off balance for a little bit. And, when you have a team like that off balance, you got to continue to take advantage of it. Some red zone opportunities, that's the difference in the game.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, to register a phone question, it is the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. 1-4 to register a question. And there appear to be no questions on the phone lines.
Coach, talk about this week. You're going up against Howard, and pretty much we all know what drives the train at Howard in terms of their quarterback play, and their running game is pretty good also. Just talk about going up against Howard and what's needed in order to make it a game to come out on your end.
Well, they present a lot of problems for you. Obviously, they've got a playmaker quarterback. Hello?
Oh, yes, Coach. Hello?
You there, Ryan?
Yes, sir. I hear you.
Hello? Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that. They've got a playmaker quarterback, playmaker wideout, kind of running back by committee there. Anytime you can score almost 40 points a game, you're really causing some issues. So our defense will have to be able to get lined up to their formation and be able to defend some of the things that they're doing.
And will you look somewhat at last year's film against Howard as pretty much, it came down to the wire, or you just will focus on what the results were based on what Howard's done this year?
Well, I think both. I think, they're still doing some of the things they did a year ago, special teams-wise and especially defensively. But you kind of have to look at this year and what they're doing and who's doing it, try to be ready to go, be prepared for them.
And then also, Marcus Taylor had a set the spark early. Just talk about him, and also, at this point, what are you looking for him? If he's sometimes, like you said, if he doesn't get the ball offensively, he can make a play happen on special teams. What would you like to see from him going from this point?
Well, we just need Marcus to try to finish as strong as possible and continue to be electric and dynamic. And it's my job to try to get him the ball in space and make him go. He's done a tremendous job for us in the return game. He's one of our senior leaders, and he's got 3 more college games left. So we're going to try to showcase him as much as we can the last 3 weeks.
And also on defense, Quinterly had a good game last week, but JTY, he had 4 breakups, especially kind of contained Reynard at times. Just talk about what you think the task will be for him this year in terms of trying to stop Kalen Newton?
Well, I think, Kalen's got two experienced wideouts, guys who can make plays. For him, I think the young man, Izard, hope I'm pronouncing his name right, I think he's averaging about 30 yards a catch. And then, the Johnson guy's kind of his possession guy, so he's got two big-time receivers. I think JT is one of the better cover corners in all of FCS, and he played that way last week, but, certainly we're going to have to play well as a secondary to contain those guys. And we're going to have to be able to tackle Newton when he gets out of the pocket.
Hold on 1 second, Coach. We have a question for you.
And that's from the line of Ty Miller with Power News and Sports Radio Network. Please proceed with your question.
Good morning, Coach Scott. How are you?
Good, Ty. How are you?
I'm good, Coach. What made it so difficult to contain North Carolina A&T's ground game last week? And also, you have to have taken a look at Parson, the running back for Howard, your concerns about how he runs and how quickly he can get away and get into the secondary.
Well, definitely. I think you have to credit A&T's team, their offensive line. There were some things that we did wrong on defense, not fitting gaps, not getting lined up correctly, not making stops when we had the opportunity to. And if we don't do those things and fix those things pretty quickly, Howard has a formidable rushing attack as well. Very good tailback that, as you said, has the ability to get on you in a hurry and get downfield with the ball.
Coach, in terms of going down the stretch and looking to stop your four-game losing streak, what are you looking at from your team as we come down the stretch? Because you are in a position to be a factor, although be it as a spoiler in the conference race. But what are you looking for from your team going down the stretch here?
Well, we want to see some consistency. We want to see our guys continue to fight, and I think they did that last week. And it's just kind of unfortunate that we weren't able to pull it out, because we made some mistakes down the stretch. But we're going to continue to fight, and we're going to continue to progress. We still only got 9 seniors, so the bulk of these guys are back next year. So we're going to finish the season as strong as we can and continue moving forward.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
And there are no further questions at this time.
And before we close out, Coach, just talk about, and you just made a note, only 9 seniors. And so just talk basically, you have a roster that's still growing and developing. So just talk about trying to get those guys to buy in, but in terms of especially when consistency has been the biggest factor.
Well, I think a lot of it has to come with just guys doing the right thing and wanting to make sure they're doing the right thing all the time. I think in a season like this, you can lose a little focus. You can become complacent. So the biggest job that I have as a head coach right now is kind of keeping everybody grounded and making sure that we're all doing things that are productive and things that are giving us an opportunity to win football games.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you for taking time out and speaking with us, and good luck this weekend as you host Howard, and we'll talk with you again this time next week.
All right, Ryan. Thank you. Take care.
You're welcome. You too. Norfolk State University is back at home this weekend as they'll face off against the Bison of Howard University. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m., and the contest will be streamed live on ESPN3. Our sixth head coach this morning hails from Savannah State, as we're joined by Erik Raeburn. Savannah State fell to Delaware State this past weekend and will host North Carolina A&T State this weekend in Savannah. Good morning, Coach. How you doing? Coach Raeburn, good morning.
Good morning.
Coach, talk about last week's game at Delaware State and what stood out once you got back and reviewed the film.
Yeah, we struggled. It was a really windy day, and we struggled on special teams. We did not handle the wind as well as their kicker and punter did, and so we really had terrible field position most of the game, and we also struggled on the offensive side of the ball as well. Just really inconsistent. Had trouble stringing plays together. So those two phases were a real disappointment. We did, however, hang in there on defense, and I thought we get particularly through the first 3 quarters. I thought we played really good defense because we seemingly had our defense in terrible field position the whole game, but they were able to, get some stops on fourth down and force some field goals and keep us in the game. And then we intercepted a pass, ran back for a touchdown to get within, a 2-point conversion away from a 1-touchdown game. And we just didn't have it, and really disappointed with how we played.
And one thing, and you've alluded to, you have a bunch of guys that's still learning the game, and just like as Coach Scott, the last few weeks, you saw that the light was on and everything went well, and then this week, the results didn't come out your way. Just talk about consistency, and how do you develop that? Obviously, that's nothing you can just hand over and they can drink it and take. So just talk about how do you develop that, especially at the latter part of the year.
Yeah, it's difficult when you have a young team. That's the thing you fight the most, I think. And then obviously as you have some injuries and put new players in there, that's a thing you got to battle. To fight to be consistent. So, I think obviously it comes down to to practice and how accountable you hold yourself. If you just demand that you're locked in every rep of practice, you'll probably do that in the game and execute much better. But we're struggling a little bit with that. We're kind of up and down. There's times where we look like a good football team, and then there's times where we look the exact opposite. So, and this Saturday, we did not look like a good football team for sure. But we got to keep battling, and unfortunately we got a great team coming in to play us on Saturday.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Once again, to register a phone question, it is the 1 followed by the 4. 1-4 to register a question. And we do have a question, and that is from the line of Samaj Marsh, and that is with the BlueDeathValley.com. Please proceed with your question.
Hello.
Hello.
I know A&T. How you doing? I know A&T poses a big challenge as far as their wide receiver core. They have a lot of tall, long receivers. Could you just talk a little bit about how your defense is looking to, I guess, take that challenge on as far as A&T's receivers?
Well, you're 100% right. They obviously their quarterback is the returning offensive player of the year in our conference last year. So he's probably the if not the best, definitely one of the best passers we faced to this point. And it seems like every one of their receivers is a big, tall, physical guy. So it'll be a challenge for us for sure. We do feel like we've been playing good in the secondary. We feel like we've gotten pretty good play out of our corners, and these last several games, we switched some guys around at safety, and we feel like those guys are starting to play well too. But this will definitely be the biggest test they've had from a passing attack since we played Miami.
Right. And this, as a competitor, do your guys, probably just put this on their calendar as for get up for?
Well, I think when you play a team as good as A&T, it's a great opportunity for you to kind of measure yourself, and see how far you are off from playing at an all-conference level and as one of the best teams at the FCS level. So I think our guys, from that standpoint, look forward to an opportunity to play a team like them.
Okay, thank you, Coach.
There are no further questions at this time.
Coach, it was announced recently that your offensive coordinator will start his own football program on December 1st. Just talk about that transition from, because you all have some history together, and then talk about how, and do you think how difficult it's been just for him to manage what he has currently going on, and obviously then you have a new employer tugging at him also. So just talk about how that's been for him and his growth also professionally.
Yeah, obviously, he was a player. He played for me. I had the opportunity to coach him, and then he started his coaching career as a graduate assistant for me, and to be able to have him here helping us and working with our offensive line and our offensive unit the last 3 years has been great for our team, but it's been special for me personally as well. So we're definitely going to miss him, but really grateful for all the hard work he's done, and I'm thankful that he's got an opportunity, to be a head coach again and start another program from scratch.
And just talk about, because you come from the Mount Union tree in terms of coaches, just talk about this development of that tree and what has made everyone successful that's come from there.
Yeah, obviously I think Coach Karras, who I'm kind of unique in that he's my uncle and was my head coach, and had a chance to play for him and coach for him as an assistant, as did so many of these other guys that are now coaching, and just had a great experience as a player, and I think as a player and young coach, you kind of got to learn from the best as to how you should run a football program and how you should treat players, and so I think that's probably if you talk to any of us that are in coaching that came from Mount Union, I think most people would kind of point to Coach Karras as the reason or the inspiration. Our experience, playing for him and coaching for him, that made us want to go into the profession.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you for speaking with us this morning, and good luck as you prepare to host the Aggies this weekend, and we'll talk again next week.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Savannah State University will host the Aggies of North Carolina A&T this Saturday at 1 p.m. The contest will be shown live on ESPN3. Coach Pough, good morning. You're hard at work on the practice field, and
all right. I messed that up this morning. I'm sorry. Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem, Coach. Just talk about your bye week and what was accomplished on and off the field.
Well, we had last week off, of course, and it was an opportunity for us to work on some of the things that we need to fix. We had some guys that were banged up some, so we got a chance to get some of those guys healed. And then you self-scout and do those kind of things. Anytime you get to that point of the year, especially as late as it is, then you got lots of opportunities to see those things that you kind of messed up during the year. So you try to fix most of those things going into our last 3 games.
All right, Coach, we'll now move on to questions from the media.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to register a question, please press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. 1-4 to register a question. And our first question comes from the line of Melvin Beal with Inside Sports. Please proceed with your question.
Good morning, Coach Pough. How are you?
Fine, Melvin. How are you?
I'm well. Coach, you're going down to Florida A&M and probably facing a very angry Florida A&M team. What are some of the challenges that they present to you?
Well, anytime you play, a Florida team, you play a bunch of guys that can run. And, when you get a bunch of angry guys, the last thing we needed was for them to lose to Howard. They had the conference championship wrapped up and, kind of on the easy street, not really paying attention. It might have been a day that we might have been able to sneak in there and maybe get a win that way. But, these guys, having lost Saturday, it'll be a tough game for us. And these guys, Coach Simmons and his group, I think will be extremely focused and and attentive to all the details and that kind of stuff. So it'll be a tough game for us there. Extremely hard to defend offensively. They spread you out and they throw it around a little bit. And they got guys that can run and catch, and receivers and run. They can run, and running backs that can run like really fast. And then they've got a secondary that's second to none. So they got a good team, and it'll be a tough game for us in Tallahassee this coming Saturday.
Coach, you have a historical perspective of that program down in Tallahassee. Talk a little bit about what Coach Simmons has been able to accomplish to change the culture there in Tallahassee.
Well, I was afraid when they hired this guy that that it might be an opportunity for a sleeping giant to wake up, and you're always concerned when a program of that tradition and ability, the style of recruits that they can actually bring in the athletes that they can go out and recruit that way. You got a possibility of them being really good, really fast, and it's a little bit quicker than we had anticipated. I was hoping it'd take a year or two, but Coach Simmons has done a fantastic job of organizing his guys and getting them in the right places and coach them up. So it's going to be a tough program to play against for years to come. They were great when they had back in the days with Coach Hubbard and then on through Coach Joe and Joe Taylor had some good teams too. So they've been good, from time to time over the years. But you can tell that they're getting ready to be good for some time to come.
Coach, finally, I know that you're a public figure and you really can't comment a whole lot, but it's election day around the country. Is that the type of thing you talk to your players about, the importance of having an impact off the field and participating in the process?
For sure. We're working with our guys to do absentee ballots, and we also work with our guys that are close enough by that they can get back home and go and vote. We think it's incumbent upon us that we stress the importance of our guys all getting involved in the process. So, yes, we talk about it a good bit, and we don't necessarily choose a side. We're not Republicans or Democrats particularly. We are just kind of make sure that you're a part of the process and make sure that you understand, where each position or where each part is positioned in ways where our guys can make an informed decision.
Coach, thank you very much, and good luck this weekend.
Appreciate it so much.
Our next question comes from the line of Ty Miller with Power News and Sports Radio Network. Please proceed with your question.
Hey, Coach Pough, good morning to you. How are you?
Hey, Ty, how are you this morning?
I'm good, Coach. Coach, I know it's a kind of a strange game for you in the sense that winning 3 of your last 4, and it has been determined a long time ago that it's a non-conference game. So does it take any of the luster off it in any kind of way?
Well, it's different. It'd be nice now for us to be able to get back in the race some if we were able to defeat Florida and them down there. But, that's part of what we actually agreed to, at the beginning. So, you put those things in place in a way where you don't make decisions based on, information such as this. So, we appreciate Florida and them working with us to get a schedule. We were at a point where we needed a game. It worked out that way for us where we can get a chance to play with our sister schools. It'll be a good football game. And I'll tell you one thing, you won't know one bit of difference whether or not, it's a conference game or not when we kick it off on Saturday. These guys are going to get after each other. I'm looking forward to going down, looking at seeing FAMU's new place, with the new turf and all that kind of stuff. And, Coach Eastman's a friend, Coach Simmons played with my son. They're all kind of connections. Our kids know their kids. It'll be a knockdown, drag-out kind of football game. So we look forward to going down to play those guys this coming Saturday.
Coach Ryan Stanley got a lot of accolades comparatively from what you've seen of him. Any similarities between him and Caleb Newton?
Yeah, they both can throw the hang out of football. Those guys are, fantastic players, and you can tell they understand exactly what they're doing within the offense. They understand the approach, they're trying to accomplish as far as their coaches and their plan is concerned. So, both guys are fantastic players, and they're some of the top guys in our league. We got some good quarterbacks, in this league now. So it's fun to watch those guys on film.
And finally, Coach, speaking of the good quarterbacks, Tyrese has been coming along pretty good. Can you talk about his progression and anything that we may look for him having to improve on during the bye week?
Well, he's getting better each week. I think everybody kind of recognizes that. And, you know, it's fun to see him come from where he's come from to the point that he's at now. So, you know, we are maybe better at trying to design our attack around his skill set. One of the things that we've done is we try to lean toward him, you know, being able to run the football a little bit more. So hopefully we can figure out some things that can give him an opportunity to continue to improve that way.
Okay, Coach, thanks a lot. Good luck this weekend.
Appreciate that.
And there are no further questions at this time.
Coach Pough, let you get back on the practice field and get those guys on the line. So definitely appreciate you for joining us, and we'll talk again next week, and good luck as you travel down to Tallahassee.
Guys, I appreciate you being patient with me. I appreciate you. Bye.
No problem. Thank you, Coach. South Carolina State will head to Tallahassee, Florida to face off against the Rattlers of Florida A&M. This will be a non-conference contest and will not count in the Meac standings, as kickoff is set for 4 p.m. and will be streamed live on ESPN3. We're now joined by North Carolina A&T State head coach Sam Washington. The Aggies had a successful homecoming as they defeated Norfolk State this past weekend and will travel to Savannah, Georgia to face off against the Tigers of Savannah State. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you today, Ryan?
I'm good, Coach. Made it back safely, and so appreciate the hospitality. So just talk about, speaking of last week's game, just talking about your team. It was a battle early on. Then your running backs got hot, and it seemed like everything else went into place. Just talk about last week's game.
Okay. Well, I'm glad homecoming's over. I tell you what, a lot of distraction, but well attended. And I thought, as far as the game goes, offensively, as you stated, we got off to a slow start, but seemed to get things in order. What stood out the most was our special team play. We didn't kick the ball very well, nor did we cover the football well. So those are the things that stuck out in my mind glaringly that must be addressed immediately. Both running backs, I thought, ran the ball extremely well. The offensive line opened holes for them, and they hit them, and they were able to break a few tackles. I think we rushed for like 310 yards, and that took a lot of pressure off of Lamar, throwing the football. So we was able to eat up a lot of clock along the way. When you're able to run the football, you can shorten the game up a little bit, and we felt very pleased with our time of possession. If I'm not mistaken, in the fourth quarter, we had the ball like 11 minutes. So when you keep other offense off the field, that give you a better chance, a greater chance of winning. So we were able to do that. Defensively, I thought we stopped the run. We did well against the run. We know Carter is a very exciting pass run threat. So we tried to keep him contained as well and as much as possible, and had some success with it here and there, and he got away from us a few times. But overall, it was a win, and as they say, all wins are good wins.
And just talk about Malik Wilson. I don't know if you all had some kind of juice or something, because you developed return men pretty well over there. Everyone thought things would change once Chris left, but now Malik is taking what he's done and even expanded. And so just talk about Malik Wilson, how he basically turned the game over on this big play.
Absolutely, and I'm not sure how he does that, but because he seemed to show up when we need him most, and that's what the great players do. They show up when they're needed, and he does exactly that. That was big more in their favor at that moment. They drove down the field, and we was able to hold them to a field goal, but the fact that they put points on the board, gave them big momentum, and the kickoff. I think it was like 97, 98 yards. And the fact that he broke a tackle, because he's a small little fella. So, but his vision is unbelievable. And, of course, you know, he has that God-given speed. And it's a joy to watch him to get in an open field. And once he does that, it's going to be tough to catch him.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media. We have two questions queued up, Coach. Just waiting for the operator. Yes. She's back.
I'm standing by, yes. The first question comes from the line of Samaj Marsh. Please proceed with your question.
Hello, Coach. Congrats on the win this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I know you mentioned yesterday that your starting quarterback, Lamar Bernard, suffered a concussion against Norfolk State, and he's currently in the protocol. Can you just describe how that process works and what is the latest date that you can make a determination if he'll be ready to play? Would it be like a game time decision, or how does that normally work?
Well, that decision is not mine. It actually comes from the doctors, and he's tested on a daily basis, and then it's based upon how well he does on the test. His faith, whether or not he'd be able to play or not. And he did well yesterday. So, it's no promise, but there's hope. So we'll see how it goes today and tomorrow. And then we'll make a determination on Thursday where we go from there.
Right. And I guess it's good that you have such a strong running game in case he's unable to play. Both Cartwright and Martin had great efforts against Norfolk State. Speaking of Cartwright, have you begun to get any feedback from NFL scouts as far as his potential at the next level?
Absolutely. They started in spring ball, actually. And every practice, pretty much, someone's here. And we've had as many as 6, 8 teams on any given day, evaluating him. So he definitely would be one that would have a chance at the next level. And I think he'll do very well.
Right. You mentioned you were kind of disappointed with your kicking game for the most part on Saturday, but you decided to give Noel Ruiz a chance to make a 42-yard field goal. He came through for you, and that was a crucial kick. What was your thought process in having that confidence in him at that point?
Well, he could do the job. His biggest issue is himself. He's one of those that fight within himself. And as long as his confidence is high, he's high. He get down on himself, and then he's not nearly as effective. So it's like most kickers. I think they all are special in their own right, their own way. And he's no exception to that rule.
Right. And one more. Coach, I know that you had talked a lot this season about the penalties, and you're trying to crack down on them. You had another personal foul Saturday. At this point, do you think that that's maybe a discipline issue with some of the players on this team? Like, how would you just characterize the ongoing battles you have with the penalties and discipline?
Well, you know what? On Saturday, I possibly would have felt that way, but after watching it, reviewing it on tape, I totally disagree with the officials. And if you in the position that he was in, he only could see the aftermath. The kid obviously pulled up, and we have turned it into the conference, for their review, and I'm sure they'll see it our way at the end of things. And the other one was the spiking of the ball. A sign of frustration that need to be toned down. We want them to be excited and play with a lot of energy and effort, but not to that magnitude. We got to learn how to control our emotions, better. Now that's the one that I have an issue with. So those were the two, dead ball fouls, which we just cannot do. So one I think was on the official, and the other was just bad judgment.
Got you. And I said lastly, but this is the true last question. I know I need to probably apologize. Last time I talked to you, I brought up trick plays, and it seems like last week you took me to heed what I said. You tried a fake punt in the game. Could you describe that setup and why you thought that was a good time to use that fake punt?
Who told you we called a fake punt?
Oh, it looked like the punter tried to run the ball.
I'll tell you what.
That was the call you're saying?
And that's exactly what I'm saying. It was a rough punt. And the kid elected. He elected to run the football. So
okay.
Yeah, that is just one of those deals. You won't see him on the field again.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Coach, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
And our next question comes from the line of Ty Miller with Power News and Sports Radio Network. Please proceed with your question.
Hi, Coach Washington. How are you?
How you doing, Ty?
I'm good, Coach. A couple of seconds ago, you mentioned about emotion. So can you go back to Friday night when you met with the team and you talked of there being a lot of emotion in advance of senior day and how there was even a lot of players on the field Saturday rather, really emotional playing their last games.
Absolutely. It did. It got very touching for quite a few of us, including myself. Some of these kids have been here 5 years. They're 5-year guys, and they're part of this family. And they told the story how they got here and the journey in which it took for them to remain here, and the hard work and efforts and the trials and the tribulations. You never know what these kids actually go through. You really don't. You only can assume. You have an idea, but it got to be very emotional. The success stories and the camaraderie and how kids met and how one perhaps kept the other one from making a bad decision. And those are the things that touch me more or most. Those kind of conversations. And yeah, very emotional.
Hey, Coach, a lot was talked about the running game this week, 310 yards. But for the first time in 27 years to have two A&T backs go over 100 yards in one game, how special is that? And how a lot of us didn't know that.
No, well, I tell you what, it's very special. From a coach's standpoint, in particular, when you don't have to put that burden on one person, and you can, throw two weapons, at a defense, that's tough. When you have to prepare for two different types of runners as well, they both, I think, are very physical, but Jermaine can run away from you, and Carray gonna pound you. So it makes it very difficult for defenses, to prepare.
And Coach, not a lot is, of course, you talk about the running backs, but talk about Michael Shaw and his contribution this weekend, and he graded out one.
Man, I'm glad you said that because, offensive linemen rarely never get any publicity. That young man has graded out and has been playing at such a high level. He's very conscientious. He's one of those guys that come and watch film. He want to know. He sponge up information. He's just a joy to watch as well. If you just kept your eyes on him for a few plays, he's not very big, but he's very athletic, and he's super strong, and he can run. He runs like a defensive lineman, and when I recruited him, I thought he was a defensive lineman, but I'm glad I didn't make that mistake. We put him on offense, and have not looked back since. And he's been a major contributor to our success the last few years.
Hey, Coach, finally, I know there's a lot at stake going down the stretch here, and you will likely on November 17th become a Bethune-Cookman fan, but you got to take care of things first in the form of Savannah State, and you know this is not a team that's going to lay down for A&T, so can you talk about the matchup and how much your guys have to be on point for this game?
Well, I'll tell you what, every time I've ever been to Savannah, Georgia, it's been a dogfight. We've never gone down there and had it, a cakewalk. So it's going to be very tough. They do a very good job. That's a well-coached football team. And it's just amazing, their record don't indicate, their efforts and their play. Not only schematically are they sound, those kids play hard. And I look at it as a challenge. This is a big challenge for us. And as you stated, it's very important that we, do our part to, have a chance at the end of this thing, and which means we got to, play 2 ball games at a very high level, regardless of who we playing. So that's going to be the major focus this week, and look forward to going down there playing a good football team.
Thank you a lot, Coach. Have a good week, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Ty.
Coach Washington, appreciate it for joining us again. Enjoyed the conversation, and we'll definitely talk again this time next week.
All right, buddy. We'll see you then.
Thanks. North Carolina A&T State heads to Savannah, Georgia to face off against the Tigers of Savannah State. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m. live on ESPN3. We'll move a few miles up the highway to Durham, North Carolina, as we're joined by Granville Eastman of North Carolina Central. The Eagles will play Bethune-Cookman this Thursday night in Daytona Beach live on ESPNU. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing good. Doing good, Ryan. Glad to be with you.
Same. Speaking with you, Coach, we'll jump right into it. Just talk about your game against Edward Waters, as you had contributions from nearly everybody on the roster.
Yes, a lot of guys played, and the thing that I was really impressed about was just how our offense was able to run the football. And, we had over 2 or 3 100-yard rushers in the same game. Hasn't been done in quite some time here, from what I was told by our sports information communications people. And, really, the offensive line played well. We seemed to get some chemistry, some unison there blocking. I thought our defensive run game was pretty stout as well. And maybe just some lapses towards the end that we could have done better, playing some young players. But overall, I was pleased with the team's performance. And, it's homecoming, so everybody's happy with a big win. And so I was most pleased for that as well.
And it was homecoming, and that game is behind you. And now you have a short week coming up to face off against the Bethune-Cookman team, which we all know your contest over the years is going to come down to the last 10 seconds or so. So just talk about playing against Bethune-Cookman, but then also with the Thursday factor involved.
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, it's a short week, and so, we really had to go back and do some early planning as early as last Thursday in preparation, and then we had to, tweak our schedule as far as practices with our team, work around some academic conflicts, class conflicts. So thank goodness, we've been able to put some things in place, and been able to put together really 2 good days of practice, 2 solid days of practice. We'll see if we can't get a third one in here. And the Bethune-Cookman, it's always a good game. Coach Simmons and those guys do a great job of getting their players ready. We know they'll be ready. It's going to be a tough football game. But as I told our players, there's still a lot to play for. And, this is just the next opportunity, on the list.
Thank you, Coach. We'll open up the call for questions from the media.
Ladies and gentlemen, to register a phone question, it is the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. 1-4 to register a question. And there appear to be no questions at this time.
Coach, heading into the contest versus Bethune, and you now have depth at the running back spot based on what we saw last week. How do you anticipate that going as you head down the stretch in conference play?
Well, I think it's going to be very important. Meac possesses a lot of good running backs, and the overwhelming majority of teams like to run the football. The thing you have now, you see now, everyone knows what North Carolina A&T and their two-headed monsters, what they're capable of. And this time of year, you have to be able to run the football, and it doesn't serve you well if your guys is banged up. So having multiple backs that are capable, they got them at Bethune. We'll face 2 or 3 of them this Thursday night. It keeps guys fresh. Now, it makes it tougher on defense, and that's my side of the ball. And especially when you have, backs that are, some are physical, some are change of speed backs. I think that's hard for young football players, which college football players are. It takes an adjustment. As soon as you get used to one, you got to get used to another. And I'm glad that, to some extent we present some of those challenges for our opponents, but we have to face it because, like I said, in the Meac, they're going to run the football. And so I'm just glad that we have a couple that we think are very capable and can help us, give us a chance to win.
And speaking of your matchup Thursday, can you kind of summarize the past few years versus Bethune-Cookman? There's always something that you never can anticipate what's going to come up. What do you attribute that to from your experience playing against the Wildcats?
Well, it comes from a great position of respect. Until we started winning some in 14, 15, Bethune-Cookman they were the powerhouse team. And then A&T came on the scene and Central as well. But, you knew you had to get up for that game because you were playing a perennial powerhouse, a Meac consistent champion. And our approach to those guys have never changed. And I think you see how the way they come at us. And so it's really 2 intense teams that understand the importance of wanting to win, of staying at the top. And so I think, over the last 2-3 years, every team has been able to give it its best. We all remember, last year, some people don't want to, but I'll never forget it, the Hail Mary. Every team is going to play to the final snap to win this game. And we just have to always be conscious of that, remember that. And I think, both teams will be set to do the same thing again, and that's what will make it a close game. Usually the winner has a chance of winning the Meac Conference as well. And so that puts even more at stake when we play each other.
And you basically took the next question. Both you and Bethune still in this race. Race is not over, and obviously you know what you have to do. So you're talking about this basically being sort of an elimination game, and does that add to the intensity, especially knowing that there's a lot?
It sure does. It sure does. We've been trying to preach for the last 3 weeks that we were somewhat in a playoff situation. Had a little setback a couple weeks ago. Was unfortunate, but just very happy to say that we're in a playoff football game, and that's what it is. It's a single game elimination. Before we can look at anything ahead, we have to take care of business. Bethune is in the same boat, and they know that, and we know that. And I think that's going to provide for even a tighter competition. No team's going to want to give it away. Somebody's going to have to go out there and win the football game. And if our young men come with the mindset of a sense of urgency in playoff and we have a second shot, then I'm good with what the outcome is going to be. But we have to have that mindset that there's a lot to play for here, and it's win and move on.
Well, Coach, thanks for joining us this morning, and good luck and safe travels as you head down to Daytona, and we'll definitely talk again this time next week.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too. North Carolina Central will face off against the Wildcats of Bethune-Cookman this Thursday night on ESPNU. The contest will kick off at 7 p.m. in Daytona Beach. We will close out this morning's teleconference with our final head coach, Ernest Jones of Morgan State. The Bears fell in a close contest to Bethune-Cookman last weekend and are back at home and will host Delaware State on Saturday. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, Coach. Recap last week's game versus Bethune-Cookman, and what stood out as your team battled back to make it a game in the closing minutes?
Oh, well, we knew we'd have a good football team coming here with Bethune-Cookman. They had a bunch of athletes running all over the place, fast, athletic guys. We knew that. But the thing that stood out, which is the same thing that's been standing out week in and week out with this football team, is that we have a football team that'll compete. We have a football team that'll compete for 4 quarters, and we have a football team that'll give us a chance to win the game in the 4th quarter. And we just got to find a way to win a football game. And we're doing things each and every week that put us in a position to not win. I mean, they're competing their butts off. They're doing everything we're asking them to do. Now we got to get them to a point to where they can finish a football game and win it.
And the last few weeks, you were run heavy. Now all of a sudden the stats are leaning toward pass, and you had some success. So just talk about what has been the transition like, basically coming from a heavy run to heavy pass, especially with the situation you've been dealt with in terms of a new quarterback.
Exactly. Well, what's happening, Ryan, is that these teams know, as I've been saying all along, I'm committed to running the football, but one of the things I'm not is I understand football enough to know that when they put 8 and 9 men in the box, it's very difficult to run, and we only have 5 men to try to block those 8 or 9. So that's what's been happening week in and week out, is people have began to load the box, and they are daring us to throw the football out there. And that's what we had to do versus Bethune-Cookman, is throw the football a little bit more than we wanted to.
And then this week, Dale State comes in, Hornets riding high on a 2-game winning streak, and they're a heavy run team, and look like they're beginning to peak. So they're talking about facing a team that comes in riding momentum and wants to continue to make history.
Oh, man, he's doing a good job with that team. I would label that team as a try-hard team, a scrappy team. I mean, if you watch them on film, they get after it a little bit. They got some athletes over there. They play to the end of the whistle. They fight, they claw, they bite, they do. I mean, it's a good football team over there. So I can see why they have some momentum going. I can see the energy that they're going to bring in here. And we're going to have ourselves ready for a fight against Delaware State this weekend.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, to register a phone question, it is the 1 followed by the 4. 1-4 to register a question. And we have a question from the line of Phil Scher with Sports Fever Television Network. Please proceed.
Hi, Coach. With him loading the box and you now throwing the football, Bailey had a big game. We were kind of waiting for that moment for him to, I know he was nagging injuries, but talk about now that your wide receivers, that may have more opportunities to make plays for you. How excited is that bunch and, the wide receiver group? Just talk about them in general.
Oh, man, it's pretty exciting. I mean, Bailey was chomping at the bit this week to get to practice. I mean, he couldn't wait to get out there to start practicing. And we've been throwing the ball all over the place this week in practice, a lot more than what we have. We anticipate Dale State's going to load the box. They've seen other teams try to do it with some success, and we're getting our wide receivers ready to have big days throwing the football. So we'll play again with DJ Golak. He seems to be able to get the football out of his hand a little bit quicker than the other 2 quarterbacks at this time, and we're going to try to throw the football a little bit.
What is it about your defense, Coach, that allows for the outstanding linebacker play with Whitaker and McBurrow and Kennedy, the numbers they've put up? I mean, they are the heart and soul of your defense. Is it designed that way for them to be able to fly around and always be by the football and make big plays?
It is. I mean, we like to believe that we have 3 of the best linebackers in the Meac and 3 of the best linebackers in the country. But what we ask our defensive back to do is tough. That's why you see some of those big plays, but they've been outstanding, is we play man-to-man defense, and we play bump and run. So we're not allowing receivers to get any air. So if the quarterback wants to try to throw the ball to the wide receiver, he can go for it, but that's what we're going to do. But that frees up those linebackers to just run and hit. So the defense is intentionally built to have some success with our linebackers. I would expect that we would always have linebackers that will be really good players in our conference by the way that we play on our back end.
The morale of the team, Coach, you guys have been in so many close games, so many games that could have went the other way instead of sitting with a couple of wins. You could have had a couple more W's. What is the morale of the team? I know you already said the guys come to work and they play 4 quarters. But can you kind of feel that they know they're at the verge here? They know they're getting closer and closer and getting this thing turned around.
Yes, sir, Phil. I would just tell you this: you will have to come to a practice to see it. But our guys are practicing as well as they've been practicing since we started in August. I mean, they understand that this is a process. It's a tough process. We're in that stage where we're going to be in football games in the 4th quarter. There's not a player on this roster that doesn't know that that's going to happen week in and week out. I said, but what the hard part is the push from just being in a game in the 4th quarter to winning that game. So that's the struggle that we're dealing with, and that's the frustration that we're dealing with our players and with our coaches. But I will truly tell you that they understand the process. They understand that this is the scenario that we're in right now, and we got to find a way to stop beating ourselves and try to finish a football game and win it.
Thanks, Coach. I'll see you Saturday.
Yes, sir, Phil. Thank you.
And there are no further questions at this time.
Coach, before we close out, and I just wanted to ask this question. You had a chance. You got the ball back with 53 seconds left. A young quarterback threw a pick. But just talk about what do you tell him at that moment, so it doesn't, it doesn't affect him going into the next game. How do you deal with especially a young quarterback that willed his way to get you back into the game, but that one mistake was at the very end?
Yes, sir. And, what we told DJ is that we got into that drive. We thought that Bailey was having a really good football game, and we said that we're going to take a shot at Bailey for the win. And that's what he was doing. He needed a little bit more help from one of the other receivers. We were running a concept of double post, and we needed that inside receiver to get that safety out of there on his post route, and we didn't quite get that. Bailey ran by the corner on his post route, but that safety hung in there, and I don't think DJ saw that safety. He just anticipated that Bailey would beat his guy and that the inside receiver would get him out of there. So we just told him that he got to be a little bit more patient with his eyes. He has to see the coverage, because if that safety still sits in there, you got to drop down in the middle of the field to the back, which would have been something he could have done on that. And he just, he went on and tried to hit Bailey for the big play. So we just got to continue to show him film, continue to show him coverages, and continue to believe in the kid, because he's going to be a good football player for us. But we're throwing him out there as a freshman trying to play in a college football game and win a game for us in the 4th quarter. So we're very pleased with DJ Golak and the decision that he made.
Well, Coach, thanks again for joining us. Good luck as you host Delaware State this weekend, and we'll talk to you this time next week.
Ryan, I sure appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Same here, Coach. Oregon State will face off against the Hornets of Delaware State this Saturday afternoon. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m., and the contest will be shown live on ESPN3 and Sports Fever TV.